give you a little bit of background and history. Some of you might have looked it up on the internet. American Inn of Court has a national headquarters in Washington, D.C. Their website does give background as to how the inns was started. The Inn of Court, the original Inns of Court from England, and what it was, and this is a real simplified explanation, but it was an opportunity for members of the bar and the judiciary and students at the law schools to get together and have discussions and meet and share in a bonding of fraternity outside of the courtroom, outside of disputes, and have an opportunity to discuss things with judges and other attorneys that you wouldn't have an opportunity, certainly not in a courtroom. And these were generally held, and you've seen in the movies where they have the classrooms in the round. You have the lecturer down at the bottom looking up at all of you. Wouldn't that be great if that was still the case? You could throw things if you didn't like it. And that's where they had them. And then they branched out and they became more formal meetings and dinner meetings and things of that nature. And I believe it was don't quote me on this, I believe it was in the 80s that the first American Inn of Court was started in the United States through an initiative through Chief Justice William Rehnquist of the Supreme Court, who wanted to have a similar type of organization whereby attorneys could get together and socialize and have opportunities to grow the profession, talk about ethics, civility in court, and mentor young attorneys, students, and have the ability to get to know and meet the judges on a less formal basis. One of the issues that we had in this country is because of the way that most judges in most states become judges through election, so there's not really a great deal of ability to get to know your judges, get to know how they're selected, and why they want to become judges, and what their ideas and opinions are. That doesn't mean they can't share them. It just means that it's more difficult to do it. And this was one of the ways that it's done. The American Inn of Court, each chapter throughout the country is by invitation only. Anybody that wants to join the inn as an attorney, they have to apply. We have different levels. We have the younger attorneys, which are called associates. Then we have barristers and masters. And I believe barristers are, 10 to 20 years, masters are 20 years plus, the practicing law. It is open to anybody that's in the legal profession that is an attorney or a judge. We have approximately 125 members, not including students. Of those members, 20 to 25 of them are judges. I can tell you that when I was in law school, the day that, and this was actually kind of unique back when I graduated, the day that I got my bar results over this thing called the internet, and my office manager signed my bar card, I went the very next morning to a hearing, and I walked into a hearing, and the judge, who I had known for 3 years, having gone to in a court monthly meetings, walked in and she said, "Good morning, Mr. Daniel." That's never going to happen to you unless you happen to have that judge as a professor at your law school. That is probably, for students, the biggest benefit of American Inn of Court. Whether it's the George C. Young Inn of Court, the Family Law Inn of Court, the Workers' Comp Inn of Court, and there's also Inn of Court in Seminole County. It is an incredible tool. It is unlike anything else that you will experience in law school. You will not have an opportunity to socialize and mingle with the best attorneys that practice in Orlando and judges that sit in a diverse number of different benches, whether it be state, federal, or appellate, all at one time, and have an opportunity to have drinks with them and dinner with them 6 to 8 times during the calendar, not the calendar year, during the school year. The Inn of Court starts in September, and we have monthly meetings every month. We don't have a December meeting through June. The June meeting is our year-end awards banquet. It used to be called the Judges' Dinner because at the year-end meeting, we invite every judge from all the surrounding counties and every court, federal, state, appellate, to come to that meeting for our awards banquet. And typically we have a significant number of more judges that are actually members of the Inn that come to that meeting. And that's also an opportunity to, you can bring a guest, whereas you don't generally have the opportunity to bring a guest during the regular meetings throughout the year. What we do is we get together once a month. It is a dinner meeting. We have a bit of a cocktail hour ahead of time. And we are assigned pupillage groups. Every student that becomes a member will become a member of a pupillage group. Those groups do one of two different things. They're either a service group, in which they get to work with a different group that is going to perform a service project during the year, or they're one of our skit groups. And that's exactly what it sounds like. At our dinner meetings, we put on skits. Sometimes we just put on some boring presentations, but the best ones are generally the skits, which means somebody has to write a script and somebody has to stand up and speak the words written on that script. And the idea is that you're supposed to learn something from it. Our commitment is to civility, professionalism, and ethics in the law. And typically our topics follow that. Sometimes we have meetings where we just have a substantive topic that we talk about. But typically our meetings are going to be geared towards civility, professionalism, and ethics. And you would think that after a while that might get boring, but we never run out of things to discuss and ways to look at different issues from the aspect of civility, professionalism, and ethics. And that can be anything from the way you deal with opposing counsel, to how you handle clients, to how you handle judges. In addition to the ability to meet and get to know attorneys and judges, that's probably the second best thing about the Inn of Court, is that you do learn a lot. The service groups that we currently have, I think we currently have 3 right now. One is sort of a public relations group where we try to promote activities that the Inn is involved in. Another one is is a group that we work with through the women's, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a battered women's group that Judge Blackwell heads up. I believe they have a radio show even that they do on I don't know if it's a weekly or monthly basis, but that supports the work that the women's shelter does. The other group that we have, the service group, is a group that we use to, I wouldn't say mentor, but it's a program that we go into Howard Middle School, which is the middle school that's downtown. It's the closest one to where most of the attorneys work, although they are building a new school complex downtown, where we get to go in and work with students that are in middle school and teach them a little bit about the law, and generally give them an opportunity to perform a mock trial. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to sit down in one of those mock trials, and it was amazing to see 12 and 13-year-olds up there cross-examining. And we had a real judge on a bench, and we had it in a real courtroom on the 23rd floor of the Orange County Courthouse, and went through the whole trial. So those are some of the different groups. There might be another service group I'm forgetting about this year, but otherwise you're going to be in one of the pupillage groups that's either going to do a presentation or skit, or be in one of the service groups. We accept 14 students a year. We accept 7 from FAMU and 7 from Berry. If either school cannot meet their quota, which is not usually due to anything other than class conflicts, we take more from the other school. meet typically on Tuesday nights. The last year-end meeting sometimes fluctuates. To be a member, you would have to, other than the application process, which I'll get into, to be a member, you would have to commit to attending those meetings. If you have a conflict in the fall and you cannot attend the fall meetings, you cannot be a member of the Inner Court as a student. You can apply to one of the other Inns of Courts, maybe they meet on different days. Come spring, if you have a class conflict, that's fine. You can miss the dinner meetings, and you can tell us whether or not you want to continue on as a member with your pupillage group, or you're no longer going to be a member. In the years that I've been doing this, and I've been the student liaison for the Inn of Court here in Orlando for 11 years, only twice have I had a student come and say I have a conflict, and because of other reasons I just can't continue on. So even if you have class conflicts in the spring, it doesn't mean you don't get to continue to work with your pupillage group, which operates outside of the dinner meeting schedules typically. I'll get into that in a little bit. If you don't have a class conflict in the spring, you must attend all of the meetings except for the year-end dinner meeting. That's the year-end banquet. That's your choice if you want to attend that one. We don't present any skits at that time. There's no learning to go on at that time. That's more of a social meeting, and it's more expensive. The cost to be a member is $25 per dinner meeting, $50 for the year-end banquet, $25 administration fee, which gets passed directly on to nationals. Berry Law School generously provides you with your initiation, your administrative fee, and your first 3 meetings. So your fall meetings, which are mandatory, are all covered. In the spring, those would be on the students. If you don't have a conflict, we want you to attend. Now, as students, what do you do? Other than show up and mingle, okay? Which in and of itself would be great. You take your pupillage groups and you're assigned, and your pupillage groups are going to be headed by at least 2 judges and 2 masters. Okay, that's going to be 2 sitting judges and 2 attorneys that are the best and the brightest in Orlando that have more than 20 years of experience. Will be heading up your pupillage group. You will meet with your pupillage group at some date and time that works out by consensus of all of the members. Every member in the inn is divided into one of these 11 or 12 pupillage groups. And through those regular meetings, whether they be lunch meetings, evening meetings, whenever it works out for those members in your group, you will plan your activities for the year, whether it's the service group or whether it's a presentation group. As students, you have some special requirements. As students, you're required to do the research for whatever topic your group is assigned. And in the past, this has been an opportunity for students to shine. I guarantee you that the members of our inn remember students that can research and write well, and those that are punctual and show up and have things to say and participate in their group. And this is what we consider a safe place. It's like the slogan in Vegas, what goes on in a court stays in a court. Okay? You have ideas and opinions and things of that nature that you want to raise in your pupillage group as to how the presentation should go or on a particular topic. That stays within your group. Nobody's going to fault you for that, and they're actually probably going to respect you for that. With that said, the Inn of Court tries to stay away from virtually any type of political issue. We don't support political candidates. We don't talk about political issues. It doesn't mean that we won't have guests or members show up that might be running for judgeship with large signs on their chest that says vote for so-and-so. But otherwise, we are a nonpartisan organization. We don't even send out announcements for any type of political meetings, engagements, and things like that that might go on in town. Otherwise, members of the Inn will generally get announcements of other activities that are going on in town that other groups are putting forth. The requirements to become a student member. You are required to meet certain GPA standards. The Inn of Court asks both law schools to pick somewhere in the top 15, top 20%, 20% being the cap, unless some extraordinary circumstances apply. We don't know what the GPA cutoff is for each law school, and we don't want to know, and we will never know. That is up to your Career Services Department to make that cutoff. Beyond that, you need to be available on Tuesday nights, and you need to submit a resume, a transcript, and letter of recommendation. The reason why we require all of that is early on, we struggled to get 7 student members applying from each school. And if you look around this room, you might not see that there's a lot of people. I come here every year and I give this speech to a handful of students in this classroom and end up finding out later on that 30 people, 40 people applied. The school will then submit all valid applications. Valid applications meaning that you meet the GPA cutoff that the school sets. That you have submitted a resume, that you've submitted your transcript, and that you've submitted a letter of recommendation. And from there, the selection committee for the Inn of Court reviews your application and will make the selection as to the 7 members from each law school. The requirements for your resume are that it be 1 page. If you send me 2 pages, you will not be considered. Okay? I'll give you an example. Bruce Blackwell, Google him, one of the most respected attorneys in Orlando, Florida. He's been practicing over 40 years. I think he's probably forgotten more about the law than I will ever know. I've seen his resume. It's 1 page. Okay? You can get it all in 1 page. You must have your name, address, phone number. If you have an email account, you have to put your email account because it's the only way we communicate with you. If you don't have an email account, you can explain why, but basically anybody can go to Google and get a Gmail account in about 3 minutes. You must include your Twitter handle and your Facebook address. We will be looking at those, just as your employers will. And I guarantee you that social media today is the #1 topic in human resources, and how it's used and what the legal limits of that are. If we come down to the decision of the last 2, we may look at your social media. Is it fair? Is it right? Those are questions for another day. But that's what's going to happen. Put that on your resume. Your letter of recommendation, and you can have as many letter of recommendations as you want, the more the better. Your letter of recommendation must come from a professor or administrator here at the law school, a judge, magistrate, hearing officer, or an attorney. That's it. I don't want letters of recommendation from your current employer unless you're employed by a law firm or somebody that's in the legal profession in some manner. I don't want letters of recommendation from your high school teachers, your principals, your college professors. Law school professor, administrator, judge meaning all kinds of hearing officers, or someone in the legal profession. So that's how you apply. The school, if you don't meet all of these requirements, probably won't even send me your name and information. I rely on the school to vet whether or not the application is complete, so that what we get and what we choose from, all the work is basically done. Beyond that, we don't have any, I think I already covered this, we don't have any requirements as to what type of law you're interested in or what type of classes you've taken before. We are all inclusive of all types of law, be it criminal, civil, family, pretty much anything out there. Now there are some very esoteric areas of the law like workers' comp that we don't have, I don't think we have a single member of, but that's why there is a workers' comp in court. It is one of the extraordinarily small subsets that is a very defined bar. People that practice in that area generally practice only in that area. But we have bankruptcy attorneys, we have environmental attorneys, we have labor attorneys, we have healthcare attorneys, we have civil and criminal attorneys, and judges from all benches. The only other thing that will be required of the students is that for the first meeting, you get there early for an orientation, in which you will probably hear me repeat everything I just told you. You will probably also hear from 2 or 3 different judges at the orientation. Our meetings are generally at Dubs Dread Country Club. The reason why they're at Dubs Dread Country Club is, although it might not be the greatest place in the world, it is the most convenient. It's close to downtown, it has free parking, and sometimes the food can actually be good. The guy that runs the Dubs Red Tap Room, who handles the food, is actually a good friend of mine, so if this gets on video, he'll know. Sometimes we have joint meetings with other inns of court. Well, actually, every year we have at least one joint meeting with other inns of court. Sometimes that joint meeting will be at their location. I don't recall if this year will be at their location or not. Sometimes we have 2 joint meetings. It depends. We're required to have one joint meeting with another inn of court for platinum status. That is bestowed by the national organization, and something like less than 1.5% of all inns of court in the United States have achieved platinum status. There's gold, there's silver, gold, platinum levels. And there are pretty strict requirements for us to get to that level as far as what we have to do. We have a mentoring program, and we do have the service groups. We also have the public relations outreach that we do, generally trying to get information into the local bar journal, the OCBA News, or the Florida Bar Journal that you will all get on a monthly basis. And you'll probably do exactly what every other attorney does. You'll skip to the page where it says where everybody has moved and changed jobs to figure out where all your friends are. Let's see, as student members, and we pretty much try to leave this up to the student members themselves to coordinate. As student members, you will be expected to have 1 or 2 of you come early to each meeting to sit with the administrator of the inn to hand out name badges as the members come in. Now, there's a lot of students that don't like doing this. I think that's crazy. You're sitting at a table and you get an opportunity to introduce yourself to every attorney and judge that walks through that door and hand them their name badge. And you're looking at their name badge and you're looking at their face, and that's going to give you recognition. And later on, if you bump into him in a courthouse, you can say, hello, so-and-so, and know his name, know his face, or know her name and her face. And that's part of what the inn of court is about. The same for judges. I go back to that story of literally my first day as a licensed attorney. I walked into a hearing and the judge knew my name and face. That is invaluable. And that's part of what the inn of court gives you. Let me see if there's anything else I forgot to cover here. If there is, I'll probably figure it out. But at this time, I just want to open it up kind of for questions. In the back.
Is there a certain time that you guys meet on Tuesdays, or is it different each time?
It's the same every time. We students are required to be there between 5 and 5:30 to help set up. The administrator, by the way, the inn administrator is the personal assistant to Judge Anton, okay, federal court judge. She's amazing. She can sit there and she can do everything she can on her own, and probably would prefer to do it. But we like to give her help because she does an amazing amount of work. You would not believe the amount of work that she does behind the scenes. We have board meetings every other month that the board needs to attend. There is a lot of actual work that goes beyond the dinner meetings and your pupillage groups that she helps out with. So we try to give her a little bit of a respite to try to get the students to help her. The name tags are all pre-made. They have little magnets on them. We put them on a board, and you can help the members find them. So basically, the cocktail hour starts at 6:30. Most attorneys are there by 6. We try to start our program. Cocktail hour starts at 5:30. Most of the attorneys get there by 6. We try to start our program by 6:30. We try to end our program at 7:50, no later. The actual portion of the program that an attorney would get CLE credit for, we try to start at 7. An hour of CLE credit is 50 minutes, so we try to finish before 8 o'clock. Sometimes we go over, sometimes we go early. The times that we go over, it's usually because it's a great topic and there's a lot of questions. Or we have a Supreme Court justice that came to speak, or came to judge, or came to be on a panel. And when you have a Supreme Court justice come, you basically don't end until they tell you they're ready to end. They don't want to take any more questions. What else? Somebody else had their hand up.
2 questions. When are the applications due? And my second question is, except for when a Supreme Court judge comes, if a student has to leave early, is that frowned upon?
It will be noticed. One of the things that every member knows is that the students are there for a reason. They're there to get to know the members and the judges. You're not allowed to sit more than 2 students at a table. And your name tags have a little yellow tag on them so that you can be seen from across the room as a student. And we've had occasions where we've had a judge come to a table where there's 5 students sitting, and these are only 8 tops, and break them up. You know, you're not there to socialize with students. You're not there to be shy or in a corner. If you leave early, it will be noticed, but unless you make a habit of it, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. What was the first part of your question?
When are the applications due?
I don't know when they're due for your career services department. We let your career services department tell you the application time it's due. I need all applications from your career service department by 5 p.m. September 9th.
Right.
Okay? So your deadline might be September 7th, might be September 8th. Your career services department will let you know what deadline they are setting for you to get your materials in. And we have had situations where students have tried to jump the gun. I've had situations where students have sent me emails directly. I've had situations where students have sent me their letters of recommendations and their resumes and transcripts in the mail. Those go right into the trash and are not considered. Now that doesn't mean if your name doesn't come through regular channels it won't be considered, because I don't make note of those names. They just go straight into the trash or the trash file. There's only one way to do it. It has to come through your career services department. That way we know you've been vetted. And I will tell you, in the 11 years that I've been the student coordinator for the IN, for this IN, I was actually student coordinator for 3 years in Miami, which is where I started my practice. In the time that I've been, we have had a situation where a student has given us, on purpose, an incorrect transcript. We've had a situation where a student has given us a transcript that had incorrect information. So incorrect, incomplete transcripts We don't want those. That's why everything comes through career services. It's got to be vetted.
Would you accept applications in the spring?
I'm sorry?
Would you accept applications in the spring?
We have no applications in the spring. This is, we do, our membership is set once a year. Our attorney and judge members for the coming year are already set. We go through the process of adding new members over the summer based upon their applications. We have a hard cap on the number of members we can have, so we basically have to have members drop out in order to add members. We have a waiting list every year by the end of the year of new members. The students come in, they are selected over the weekend after September 9th, so by September 10th, 11th, you will get an email informing you of your invitation. You must respond to the email to accept the invitation. If you don't get an email, don't call, don't email me, you didn't get in. That's the way it works. If you get an email invitation by, let's say, the 12th, then you know you're in. If you don't, you're out. And the reason why is because we have a meeting coming up, and we need to take those 14 member names and distribute them evenly among the pupillage groups. We need to print up those pupillage groups and have them ready for the first meeting, which is the organizational meeting. We don't actually do any skits at the organizational meeting. We do two things. We have orientation for students and new members, and then we have a group breakout. Everybody gets their assigned groups, and they break out into those groups, and they generally exchange contact information and talk about what dates are going to be best for them, whether they have lunch meetings or evening meetings. Typically, most of the judges prefer early evening meetings because getting away from the court during lunch hour is extremely difficult for them. And if you're involving even 10 minutes of travel, you're now down to 40 minutes of lunch hour. So typically, your pupillage groups will meet in early evening hours. It's not unusual to have lunch meetings, but nonetheless. I think I got on a tangent there. What was the original question?
When you accept the application.
When we accept the applications. That's up to the school to decide what your deadline is. Our deadline to receive them from the school is September 9th.
We will be contacting everybody that has attended tonight to follow us with the information.
In the past, I think it's been like the day before. So that gives you enough time to get letters of recommendation.
Does the transcript, does it matter if it's official or unofficial transcript?
Doesn't need to be official, but if it doesn't come through the email materials from the Career Services Department, we won't accept it. So it doesn't need to be stamped or anything like that, but if it's coming from your Career Services Department, we assume it's been checked. In the past, we have, like I said, we've had a situation where there has been either incomplete or incorrect, meaning pages got mixed up accidentally somehow. So that's why all transcripts must come through the email that we're going to get from Career Services. We don't collect any information ourselves. I see we have somebody leaving. Please go ahead and do exactly what she's doing. Put your name and email and contact information on there so we know who attended. Not that we're going to call you and ask you any questions or anything, but we do like to know who was here and try and put names with faces. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right, well, I guess that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.